Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I am going to be talking about some of the books that I have read this year in 2025. Right off the bat, I have to admit that this has been an incredible reading year for me. Basically, everything I've read has been really exciting and something I want to shout about. And just the fact that I have been reading is incredible because I've really been in a reading slump ever since the pandemic started. Part of that is because of the pandemic itself and just the stress that went along with that. I was having trouble focusing. I couldn't sit still and just read. And the other part is the fact that I got my first book deal around the time the pandemic was starting. And it is totally different reading when you are reading for fun and as a regular reader, and then reading when you are a professional author in the traditional publishing sphere and you are reading for work and also trying to read for fun, but it ends up kind of also being work. Basically, it's just been a really long time since I've been able to sit down, focus, and read the things that I want to read, and not just reading arcs from other authors, although I love getting arcs from other authors. It is so much fun. I always feel like it's such a privilege when somebody asks if I will blurb for them. But sometimes I just really want to read something that's either not in my genre or that I don't think is anywhere close to my genre, or I just want to read for fun. And I haven't been able to do that. But this year, 2025, has been different. This is the year that I'm finally getting back to becoming a reader. And I've been reading all over the place. So you're going to notice that on this list of books, there are some thrillers, there are horror, there are adult books, there are YA books, there's some fantasy. Some of these books were picked out specifically because I have my own horror novel coming out next year. It's going to be my debut horror novel. And so I've been trying to catch up on what is going on in the genre because honestly, I haven't read horror steadily since it was basically just Stephen King and Dean Koontz. And wow, the horror market is so full of different genres, subgenres. It's amazing. This is like the best time to be a horror fan because anything and everything is out there and available for you right now, which makes it super exciting, but also incredibly overwhelming when you're trying to get a gauge on what the market is selling and what they are looking for. But I digress. Let's talk about the books. And let's just dive right in with what I think was 2024's biggest or most talked about horror book, or at least one of the most talked about horror books, We Used to Live Here by Marcus Kluwer. This book was wild. And I should start off by saying that there won't be any spoilers for any of the books in this video, but I will be talking about some writing techniques, some genre conventions, and plot structures possibly. So things that readers may like or may not like in their books. So if that's something that you don't want to know about, this is probably not the video for you. This book was not what I expected. I will say in general, it is very hard to scare me in books. So I don't judge horror books on whether or not I'm actually scared. I judge on whether or not I like it, just like I like any other book. And I did enjoy this book, but it is definitely not a book for everybody. I think the writing, the prose in this was super strong. There were a lot of, I'll call them interludes in this book, just moments that kind of took you out of the story to add some context to the world that this is all happening in, which were interesting, but not as exciting to me as the rest of the book. The story with the main protagonist, with those characters, that is what was really drawing me in. I did like that there were some like puzzle things in this to solve on your own, but I did also notice that I was getting kind of distracted by the puzzles while I was reading because I kept having to write down things and then going back and checking. But this was an enjoyable read. It was fun. I did like it. I think the ending is probably a hit or miss for some readers. But yeah, it was different, a different take on the kind of haunted house. It starts off with thriller vibes, but definitely delves very quickly into the horror genre once you get past the opening. And I really liked the main protagonist. I really connected with that character. And I would definitely read another book by this author. Next, I have Come Closer by Sarah Gran. This is a short horror novella about a woman who believes that she might be possessed by a demon, and it's kind of a slow psychological breakdown of her and her life. It's a quick, fast-paced read. You really do feel like you were drawn into the protagonist's point of view, and you also really feel like you're seeing this psychological disintegration of herself as she continues to believe that something is trying to possess her. There is a, I guess, kind of shock value ending to this, but if you are a longtime horror or thriller reader, I think you will see the conventions that are being used here. You will see what is coming before the ending comes. Super well written, easy to read. I read this on the first leg of my train journey from London back home to the Netherlands. So that was a great book to choose for a trip. And if you were a newer reader to the horror genre, I think this would be a good introduction to psychological horror. Next, I have The Wife Stalker by Liv Constantine. This is a thriller. It was recommended to me by a good friend of mine who also has an incredible thriller podcast called Thrillers by the Book Club podcast. Definitely check them out. She recommended me this book. She's a big Liv Constantine fan. This is my first Liv Constantine book that I have ever read. I am definitely late to the train on these books. Liv Constantine is actually two authors. I had the incredible privilege of seeing them talk at Thriller Fest a few years ago, and I don't know why I didn't pick up one of their books earlier, but this is the first one I've read, and I think if you are a newcomer to thrillers, specifically psychological thrillers, this is a great starting place to find out if you are a psychological thriller reader or not. We've got a dual conflicting point of view here between two different characters and how their lives are entangled, mostly surrounding the same man. And it's kind of a situation where you're like, who do I believe? Do I believe one character or the other? Do I not believe anybody? And then of course at the end, you get a surprising shock twist, which I think if you are not a longtime thriller reader, will come to you as a big surprise. But I think if you are a longtime thriller reader and you have been deep into this genre for a long time, you will see the convention going on here in the writing before the ending sneaks up on you. So I don't think it'll be much of a surprise, but very well written. This is fast-paced writing. This is like writing that is like moving at high speed. It is a super fast read. I read this in less than 2 hours, I think. And I am not a fast reader by any means, but this, I flew through this. And for something completely different, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. What? For those of you who don't know, this is a science fiction novel. It's written by the same author who wrote The Martian. You might have seen the movie with Matt Damon. This one is also getting a film adaptation coming out next year, I think. Why did this book make me cry? I cried so hard reading this book. And when I tell you I am not crying over the main character in this book, I am crying over like the alien spider creature thing. I don't know what he is. I don't know what's in this book. But like the tears were coming down my face. I thought, I was like, I literally had to put the book down and be like, what is going on right now? Why? I had such an emotional reaction to this book. I'm glad I read it before the movie, because if the movie makes me cry as much as the book made me cry, I'm bringing Kleenex to the theater. Just saying. This book was phenomenal. This was so good. This was such a surprise read. I saw hundreds of people recommending this book, saying this is such a good book. If you love sci-fi fantasy, you'll love this book. No. If you love books, you will love this book. It doesn't matter that it's sci-fi, because the heart of this book is not the science fiction. It's not the science. It's not the fact that they're in space. It's not the fact that it's about astronauts trying to save the planet. It is about the emotional connection between the protagonist and the alien, who is also trying to save his planet. It's so good, you guys. It's so good. As an author, this is the kind of book that like you wish you wrote. Like it's so emotional, you guys. It's so, I have nothing more to say about this. read this book if you haven't read this book. Read it. I don't care if you're a thriller reader, romance reader, horror reader, sci-fi, it doesn't matter. This is a fantastic book. Okay, moving on. I started the Red Queen series by Victoria Aveyard. I read the first 2 books in 2 days. I think most everybody knows that these are YA, they're fantasy, although this particular series has kind of like a superhero mutant type vibe going on. I don't know why I sat so long on reading these books. I think it's because I always believed I wasn't really a fantasy reader. But then when I think back to things I actually read when I was a child, that doesn't make any sense. I was totally a fantasy reader, and I really enjoyed the first book. I thought that the characters were really easy to connect with, even as an adult. And I just thought it was really creative and an easy read, a fun read, a creative concept that is kind of based on concepts we've seen before, but then twisted a little bit on its head. Glass Sword, the second book in the series, doesn't quite live up to the first one, but I understand second book syndrome as much as anyone, and I know that Victoria Aveyard has spoken about this in some of her videos. And second books are so hard. Second books in a series are even harder, and I haven't read the next one yet, so don't spoil it for me, but I heard that the next one is really good. So I am looking forward to reading that. I'm going to try and read it this month after I finish my own manuscript. But yeah, these were fun, and I'm gonna stick with it, and I'm gonna finish the series and then maybe do a video on just the entire series, because this is an interesting one. Going along with epic YA series, I read the next book in the Hunger Games series, Sunrise on the Reaping. This was written for the fans. This was written for the die-hard Hunger Games fans, for the people who have been there since the beginning. I really like this one. And as much as I like this one, I actually love the discourse around this book even more. There are so many incredible people talking about this book and making connections between this book and the previous books, and parallels between this kind of like prequel series that's coming out and the original Hunger Games trilogy. Fantastic, phenomenal. If you are a Hunger Games fan, you need to be like watching these deep dives because they are so good. I loved this one. I read it in a day. I thought it was a very interesting introspective into Haymitch's younger life and how his life has basically been formed by the games and what happens to him and everybody around him because of the games. Loved this. Also super interesting to finally see the Hunger Games from a boy's perspective, because I do think that there is a difference in the way that the boys are being treated and the way that the girls are being treated in the Hunger Games. We see that a lot with Katniss in her books, but I think here we start to see the start of that and how he is treated a little bit different than Maisley, for example, and Luella. But this was good. You know, I hope that Suzanne Collins continues to write Hunger Games books, but if she doesn't write anymore, I guess this is a good one to go out on. I do hope that we at least get another book in this kind of like prequel set. I hope that there's a third one. I have my hopes on who would be at the center of that book. I really want to see Plutarch. I want to know more about how he got to be where he is and why he is the way he is and what is going on with him. But honestly, I will take anything Hunger Games at this point. Like, literally, give me anything. I'm starving for it. Okay, since we're on YA, let's just continue with YA. This is Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. I don't even know why I picked this up. I think I found a list of YA horror books that people were recommending. I didn't read what this book was at all. I went into it blind. I was just like, oh, cool cover. Let's try it out. This was really, really well written. I don't know what they are putting in the YA author water right now, but it is good. You guys are like knocking it out of the park. This book definitely gave me heavy Wilder Girl vibes, so if you had read this book a few years ago and really enjoyed it, I think that you will devour pun intended, this book as well. One of the things I really loved about this book is that we have two kind of main characters here. One who is a writer himself and the other one who is an artist, and kind of how their creativity plays off of each other. And I really love that. In fact, this book actually, if I can find it, it has some artwork in it that has been made by the characters, and that kind of adds to the darkness of the story. I loved the descriptions of the forest, the relationships between the protagonist and his twin sister, and the protagonist and his best friend. Really well done. There's a really interesting potential. It's kind of a love story. Kind of. It's like, if you know, you know. It is and it isn't. There is some really, there are juicy details of like character introspection in here. And it has an ending that you will either love or hate, or you won't understand. I've talked to a few different people about this book already, and we all love it, but we all have a different take on what actually happens at the end. Like, the perspective kind of depends on, I think, who you are as a reader, and maybe where you are in your own life, what you think actually happens at the end of this book. And that probably says a lot about me, because I kind of think I took a darker twist to the end than some of my friends did. But I really liked that because it sparked a lot of conversation for us about what this book is about and what actually happens and what that means. But this is a beautiful story wrapped up in a lot of very eloquent descriptions. If you love forests, if you love plants, if you love kind of dark academia, this is definitely a book for you. And the last YA that I've read recently is They Bloom at Night by Trang Tan Tran. This book absolutely blew me away. This was so good and so deep and so visceral. I literally, when I finished it, I set it aside and I was like, this book is going to be sitting with me for the rest of my life. This book takes place in a small town called Mercy. That after it has been devastated by a hurricane, we follow the protagonist Noon as they basically go on a journey of self-discovery and trying to cope with the tumultuous relationship that they have with their mother and a recent trauma that they've had to go through that has been toppled on with the grief and loss of some other family members from the hurricane. There is so much going on in this book. There is explorations of identity, both gender identity, sexual identity, relationships between family members, friends, and just what it's like to change, basically become someone else in the terms of adulthood, but also accepting that who you are is not maybe what other people wanted you to be. And this book hit me so hard. I did not anticipate feeling so personally connected to this book, but I really did. There were so many things in this book where I saw myself through the eyes of the protagonist, which is wild because from the outside you would think that the protagonist and I have nothing in common, but this is just such a beautifully well-written story, and the depths with which this author has gone to explore these different areas. If you read this book and you don't feel connected, I don't know what to say, because this book really just hit me so hard. It was so good. I have never read I was gonna say I've never read a YA novel that I connected so personally on, but I don't think I've ever read a novel that I felt so personally. I mean, if I wanted somebody to understand some of the things that I've gone through in my life, I would just tell them to read this book. And that's even outside the very poignant perspective on multiple cultures in an area that has been divided by, differences, and which I think would really connect with a lot of young readers right now. This is such an important book. This is such an important book. I think everybody should read this book. And it has one of the best covers I have seen on any book in probably the last 10 years. It's absolutely gorgeous. This is a auto buy author for me now. I will be buying all of their books. Okay, I have 2 more books on my list from 2025 that I've read so far. William by Mason Coyle. This is a short one, so kind of like Come Closer, something that you can read in a single setting. It's a horror novel. It's definitely inspired by the recent influx of AI. It's about a young family, and the husband has essentially built this kind of robot android AI contraption, and it just goes downhill from there. This was much more graphic and bloody, violent than I was anticipating. It doesn't start that way, but when it does start, it keeps rolling. And so there were a lot of graphic violence scenes that I was not anticipating. They didn't take away from the story. I think it is a sharply written story, but it is not going to be for everybody. I feel like this is kind of like one of those ghost story type stories that you tell around the campfire, and it definitely works for that. I don't think it needed to be any longer than this. I think it was the perfect size, and I love this little hardcover format. I think that all hardcovers should come in this size from now on. It is very well written. It's not like beautiful horror writing. This is definitely not your literary horror. This is more of the commercial horror. And of course, you know, AI is bad. I did like the twist at the end though. That definitely gave me some Black Mirror vibes. In fact, yeah, if you are a Black Mirror fan, this is the book for you. This is the horror book for you. You'd like this one. And last but not least, Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. This is the first Josh Malerman book that I have ever read. And it won't be the last, although this was honestly scary. This one was creepy. This one actually scared me. I didn't think it would. People said this book is actually scary, and I was like, okay, yeah, it's scary. No, it is actually frightening. And one of the scariest things about this book is how well Malerman got into the mind of an 8-year-old. When you're reading this book, and this book has a very interesting reading format. There's actually an introduction at the beginning that explains why it's written in the format that it's written. But you feel like you are in the head of this 8-year-old the entire time. It's rough, you guys, because it's creepy and you're reading it from this child's point of view, and the child is also creepy, but the circumstances around the child are creepier, and the parents are just, oh man, you are screaming at these people, like the entire time you're screaming at them. And then of course it has a delicious ending. It's delicious. And like it's coming. Like the whole time I'm reading this book, I'm like, well, there's 2 ways to end this. And if you are a real horror author, you're gonna end it this way. And I'm like waiting to see if that was gonna happen. And as we're getting closer to the end, I'm like, oh, it's gonna happen. Oh God, it's gonna happen. And then it happens. And you're not surprised by it happening because you saw it coming. But the way it's written is surprising, if that makes sense. This is a masterpiece in perspective. This is a masterpiece in point of view and voice. If you are an aspiring author, particularly in the horror genre, and you want to know how do I really grab voice, perspective, point of view, this is the book you want to be studying. Because like plot-wise, there's nothing surprising. There's nothing weird going on. There's this story. This is a story we've heard before. We've seen this in movies before. But the way it's told, that like makes it different. That's what makes it so good. 10,000 stars. Josh, I'm sold. Auto buy. I will buy all of your books from now on. I need to go and get the backlist because this is the only one I have, and now I'm hooked. All right, and these are the books I have read in 2025 so far. If you've read any of these and you like them or you enjoyed them, or if there are any books like the ones here that I really liked that you recommend that I read, please send me some recommendations because it is my goal to read as many books as possible this year. I need to catch up, you guys. I need to catch up. I am so behind. And just for reference, this is my current read. I am about halfway through it, a little over halfway. This is gonna be one to talk about. I read My Best Friend's Exorcism a few years ago. I loved it. I love the writing style, and I love the writing style. But this one, man, the dialogue between the brother and sister, it's hitting a little too close to home for me. And I read the first 100 pages and almost put it down because it was just a little too real. Like, a little too real. But now I'm into the creepy puppet part, which is not real, but like, it's creepy. So, wish me luck. And if you're watching this video before April 18th, all of my paperbacks are currently 40% off if you purchase them from harpercollins.co.uk with the code SPRING40. This is a great deal for anybody living in the UK or Ireland. 40% off all paperbacks from HarperCollins' website and free shipping on anything over £25. So if you're looking for new books, head on over to harpercollins.co.uk with the code SPRING40.